Hey and welcome, Miss Kira Speaks. Please do your girl a big favor and stick around till the end of the video. Hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Your girl is in a time crunch of my own doing. This is what happens when I have my staycation and I overplan. Do it every time. Say I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it on Easter break. Fingers crossed. We are here for another recap of Bel-Air Season 1, Episode 10, Where To? Didn't get to it at the end of the season, so we're going to do it now because Bel-Air Season 2 is airing tomorrow. So let's get all caught up. I have far too many notes, but let's try to get through them as quickly and efficiently as possible. So the episode opens and we're at Aunt Viv's art show and Will's walking around and he finds a piece and it looks just like him. It's got the crown, whole nine. Uncle Phil walks over and he's telling him, she caught his best qualities. She captured some of his best quality, and that's courage, resilience, and his ability to adapt and shine. Uncle Phil says he sees it in the painting and he sees it in Will, and Will is saying that is thanks to him and Aunt Viv, and he thanks them for giving him another chance. He's grateful for them stepping up. It was hard for him growing up without a father, and then he apologizes basically for Uncle Phil having to, step back from running for government. But Uncle Phil says what's meant to be is meant to be, and helping him is a decision he'll never regret. So Viv is chilling in the cut. She's talking to her homegirl Denise, and she's talking about how she feels guilty because the fellowship typically goes to, a younger emerging artist and not someone who lives in a mansion. Denise says that you're re-emerging and you deserve this. And by the way, where is that fine read? And I don't like Michael Ealy at all in this series. She says he came by earlier, but he left. He wanted the focus to be on the art and her and Phil. So Hillary, she's, over by the bar area. I think she's talking to Ivy and they're going over, the whole social media scene and how, fly the party is. And we're talking about her entanglement with Kylo. And Jazz comes over and him and Ivy flirt a little bit. And I think Hillary felt some type of way based on her actions later in the episode. So we see Carlton and he's looking at that same painting of Will. And he's looking a little salty. And Ashley walks over and she's like, jealous? And he says no, but he doesn't get the whole crown thing. And she's basically telling him he needs to watch the throne a little bit closer. So as Will approaches Lisa, who is all bent out of shape about him lying to her, she's like, I'm here for your aunt and not for you. He wants to start over and she said, there's nothing to restart. You lied to me. I gave you an opportunity to tell me the truth with no judgment and you still lied. And he's trying to explain to her that he was trying to protect Uncle Phil. And I didn't go back and watch the rest of the season, but I do remember that was his reasoning. And they're teenagers, so it's a little different. But for me as an adult, it's a pretty sound reasoning. I know she wanted the truth. I know you wanted the truth, girl, but I get it. But Lisa doesn't want to hear it. She walks away and Jazz works over and he says maybe sorry isn't the magic word. Tell her how you feel. So Jazz goes on about his business. Will gathers himself. He walks over to Lisa to try it one more time. So he tells her he loves her and he cannot let her walk away without saying that. Of course, she thinks that he's just saying it to get her back. And he's like, listen, you have my heart and I never felt this way about anyone else ever before. And she's like, we can't do this now or here, but we'll talk tomorrow. Jog my memory. I'm like, oh, that's right. I think Lisa might be pregnant, if I remember correctly, judging by what we saw episodes 1 through 9. So I'm guessing it's the next morning. We see Jazz and Hillary and they're laying in their afterglow and they just want to lay there all day. They're in the hotel and Hillary's like, listen, when my parents see this credit card bill, baby, all it is about to come to an end. Sis is going to have some splaining to do. But meanwhile, Jazz just wants to make it last forever when she gets a notification and they start talking about this whole thing with Ivy. And he's like, you shouldn't look at Ivy as a lifeline. She should be more like a partner. So now let's skip on over to later in the episode where we see kind of just that. Hillary's with Ivy and Ivy's at a photo shoot and she's asking Hillary how she looks and whatnot. And Hillary is going into yes man mode, but that's not what Ivy wants. So Hillary gives her the real. She gives her a couple of little tips, get your Michelle Obama on, twirl, show your shoes, all of that good stuff. So giving the good advice, Hillary suggests that the two of them work together. She suggests that she buy Kylo out of the influencer house and rebrand. They're going to make it a more female-friendly space. Lady, woman, we don't like female, but we get the gist of what they were saying. And Ivy's like, so I buy out your contract and you don't owe Kylo. Hillary wants her to think of it as an investment. She says they can do big things. So Ivy's like, all right, let me chop it up with my accountant and I'll get back to you. So like I said, going back to before, Hillary and Jazz are in that bed. Will calls Hillary. She don't answer. He calls Jazz. Jazz answers. And he's like, can you put Hillary on the phone? So he tries to play it off, but Will already knows what's up. So he tells her that he needs her help, that he needs advice, on this last shot that he has with Lisa because he doesn't want to mess it up. So we later see him call her. She doesn't answer, but she texts him and tells him, she's sending him a message saying to meet her at 3 at the coffee shop. So Uncle Phil goes in, he talks to Carlton. He wants to have some QT, just the two of them. Let's head to the racetrack and get some time on the track. And of course, Carlton is all excited because he asked about Will, but he's been wanting that time with dear old dad. So Will is cooking. He asks Carlton, does he want some? And Carlton's like, nah. But we are seeing that Jeffrey's absence is missed because there is nothing to eat in there. And so Carlton is like, he's glad he's going to be back soon because he thinks Jeffrey's on a vacation. And nope. Will says, nah, Uncle Phil said he had a family emergency. And Ashley's like, yeah, see, I knew something was up. So I went in his room and all his stuff is gone. So Will reveals that he asked Jeffrey for help with his dad. And when Uncle Phil found out, he wasn't happy about it. So later, Mr. Carlton goes in his dad's office and he starts looking for those papers. Viv goes to the photo gallery or the art gallery, whatever you want to call it, and she pays old Light Eyes a visit. I can't even read. I can't even think of what his name is. And she tells him that she appreciates his help with the fellowship. And, he's like, it's my pleasure. He just wants to share her gift with the world. And she says that she wants to work with him to give other artists of color the same opportunities. He asks, what about Phil? But she tells him that they've moved past his initial objection. So, judging by the trailer for the season, I think I saw him, so I think that they will be working together. We don't see him anymore in this episode, but like I said, your girl has not been feeling Michael Ealy in this episode because I do not want Aunt Viv to cheat. So we see a car go out the gates of the home and we see a car come right in the gates, and I said that's just bad security. So there's somebody at the door. Uncle Phil answers and it's Lou, Will's dad. What are you doing here? Uncle Phil is asking him. He's like, yeah, he's like, I heard, he wanted to see me after the British guy came and filled me in. I hopped right on the plane. Uncle Phil's telling him, you could have done this 3 years ago when you got out of prison. And that I agree. But sidebar, how did you guys feel about Marlon playing Will's dad? I was kind of with it, but I will say he did piss me off. So he did play the role well. So Lou, he's on his little miniature violin, and he says that no ex-con wants to look his son in the face from a halfway house. So Uncle Phil's like, yep, your life has been hard, but you put your selfish pride ahead of your son. And like I said, some more playing on his violin. Lou is saying that his pastor had to give him money to take the flight. He's still struggling, basically. He's giving his whole sob story, and he's saying that he's not the same person that Uncle Phil used to know. So Phil's like, listen, I'll talk to Viv and we'll get back to you. So we see just that. And Vivian wants to know, why would he just show up? And Phil is like, it's game. He could have reached out 3 years ago. But basically, he waits till he's in this nice mansion and then here he comes. So apparently Phil, which I think we might have found out in episode 8 or 9, but like I said, I didn't go back and watch the rest of them. I was just trying to catch up so this would be complete before we got to season 2. Anyway, apparently Uncle Phil was Lou's lawyer, And he basically believes that he's guilty and thinks that he hasn't changed. So, of course, Carlton found that paperwork, and now he goes to Will and he's ready to talk about it. He tells him that his dad came by, but Will's like, he don't really want to know nothing else. Carlton pulls out those papers and Will's like, he doesn't want to see them. He just wants to close the door on the situation. And Carlton's like, yeah, I understand that's what you want, but right here and right now, I don't think that's going to happen. And this is the only way for you to get answers with your dad, being there, and Uncle Phil not giving him any answers. So Will opens it, he, reads through it, and he looks disappointed, and he finds out that his dad was in prison. So Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil, they're trying to decide what it is they're going to do about the situation. Is Will ready for it? She wants to call Vi and have a conversation with her, and then Will walks in and they cold busted. So instead of trying to deny it, Aunt Viv is like, well, do you want to meet with your father? He wants to know, what does he want with me? Naturally, he's upset, and Uncle Phil says, listen, it's complicated. Lou can't be trusted. He's a con man convicted of robbing an old man who he says owed him money. You his lawyer, right? I read the report. Vivian's like, report? So then Will says, I asked Jeffrey to look into it, and Uncle Phil wasn't happy about it. And he's like, is that why Jeffrey left? And Uncle Phil's trying to be like, it was a mutual decision. She's like, no, not on my part. So what else did you learn? So Will says, his dad had it hard from the jump. His dad was a gangster who got killed in jail. His mom died when he was 15, and he dropped out of school, I'm guessing college, at 19. He continues that, he got arrested for stealing a car, so he already had a prior when the case came up. And Will's like, he didn't have a second chance like I did, and I was surprised and annoyed all at the same time with Will's, newfound sympathy for his dad. But I guess he can kind of see where his dad is coming from. And Uncle Phil says the same thing, like, oh, it's nice that you have a sympathetic view of your dad. And he's like, he doesn't deserve sympathy because Will is a teenager and he's pissed off. So Will says, reading the report, that he realized that he had been wrong his whole life, that he thought his dad, ran out on him or walked out on him. But, he didn't have a choice. Truth is, he got arrested and my mom cut him off. And Uncle Phil's like, well, that's where it gets complicated. He's volatile, unpredictable, and they didn't want him in contact with someone who would manipulate him and disrupt his life, so he apologizes. And Aunt Viv just standing there looking sad. And I remember thinking, as I'm going over this season, how anticlimactic it was, because it was supposed to be this big secret about Will's dad, and yeah, he's still alive, and what's in the folder. And it's just like, oh, that was it? He went to jail? Oh, okay, Get down in the comments and let me know if I was the only one who felt this way. Uncle Phil didn't want him to run and track down somebody who basically could have reached out, and that he's not wrong about. So Aunt Viv is telling him the decision to see him or not still on Will. What do you want to do? So Will steps out and he calls his mom. Tells her his dad is there. How? He's like, well, I'm kind of the reason for that. Oh, he tells her he hasn't spoken to him yet. And she's like, why didn't you tell? No, he asked her, why didn't you tell me he was in prison? She said that they thought it was best at the time. He was 4. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm not 4 anymore. It's been 13 years. So at some point, y'all could have said something. So she apologizes. And she said that she made the decision out of love. And she's sorry he found out this way. So he comes in and he tells them that he wants to talk to his dad. So Lou is back. And Viv, she gonna talk to him for a quick second before Will comes down. And she tells him, listen, you gonna act like the father of the year. And if you don't make him happy, I'm gonna kick your black ass out. So Will comes in and he's looking angry. He asks Aunt Viv and Phil for a minute. And Uncle Phil don't want to leave. But Aunt Viv's like, let him have it. So Will's like, it's been 13 years since I've seen or heard from you. Like, what do you have to say for yourself? He's asking him, how come you never reached out while you were in prison? And Lou says that he didn't want him to see him locked in a cage. Will starts to get emotional. And he's like, what about what I needed? Will, he went through the gamut. He imagined him with another family. He imagined him dead. And Lou tells him that Lou tells him that he thought of him every moment that he was locked up, and Will is like, that's BS. Lou says seeing his own father broken and cold behind glass all those years, it changed him, and it got worse as time progressed. He didn't want that for Will. Will deserves better, and he still does. Meanwhile, they show us Lisa still waiting for Will. He never texts her to let her know anything, so he don't show up, and she just goes on and leaves. So all of a sudden, Will and Lou are, I guess, that kind of warm Will up in some kind of way. And Will and Lou are sitting on the couch, and they're reminiscing about his dad taking him to a Sixers game and how he almost lost him. He's like, oh, your mom would have killed me. He's like, she still got on me when we came in later. I think that's what he said. So Will is asking him what happened between the two of you. He was like, it was all good until until Uncle Phil got rich. Then, he wasn't bringing in enough. And Will's like, well, Mom said you were always scheming. Lou, he ain't like that. She would put it on me. She pressured me to hustle, basically. So she robbed and beat the old man half to death, Will says. And I said, touche, Will, touche. So Lou, he gets disgruntled, and he calls Vi ungrateful. And Will was basically, nah, not to my face you won't. So he's like basically saying your mom was the worst mistake of my life. And then these two are standing up face to face on some, knuck if you buck type of energy. It's getting ugly and it's getting loud. And then he goes to kind of grab Will by the throat, and Uncle Phil swoops in just in time and was like, nope, I bet you won't touch him. So Lou was like, I didn't come here to be disrespected. And Will is basically like, you have to earn respect. He's like, you came looking for me. I don't want to tell you how not this specific situation, but I'm a single mother. So this hits a place in me that I don't want to go on a tangent and make this video too long, but baby, Lou had me so angry. And so Will's basically like, if I hadn't, would you have ever showed up? And there's silence. He's like, I was trying to get on my feet. And then Will just goes off. I didn't even put in my notes all of what he said, but Lou is tearing up, and Will basically tells him he don't want to see him ever again, and he walks out. And Viv is like, if you want to, make it work, you could try again, give him some space and try it another time, basically. And Lou basically is like, nah, he walks out without taking any accountability for the situation. I have in my notes, and while I get it that Will was upset, I wasn't really a fan of him yelling and cussing in his dad's face, although he deserved it. Just my personal opinion. So Will is upstairs packing. Carlton comes in and he tells him that Lou is gone. And he's like, you want to talk? And Will, he don't want to talk. He goes on out the room. Carlton chases behind him. Will's going down the stairs to the door. And all of a sudden, the whole family is in like the little vestibule. And Will is angry. And he's basically venting. He's telling Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil that basically that they abandoned him and his mom too. He has a point. 10 years and not one visit. I said, damn. He says, he can't trust him. And so Carlton, he goes and he grabs him and he hugs him and he slides some cash in his pocket. I said, okay, Carlton. And I teared up because, Carlton had a serious character arc, as I remember from the beginning of the season when he had all the hateration and holleration for Will. So Will's like, Carlton, Ashley, Hillary, I love you, but I got to do what's right for me. Walks out the door and leave as Uncle Phil's like, Will. So then later on, we see that they're trying to locate the car, but they need Jeffrey because Jeffrey's the one to set up the GPS so the company won't track it, which I'm like, is that how that works? But I guess. And they haven't heard from Jeffrey. It's been 3 hours. So Carlton asks, why isn't Jeffrey, returning our calls? Uncle Phil, he looks over at Aunt Viv, and then he says with a straight face, he has no idea. But he hopes he'll hear back from them, or he thinks he'll hear back from them soon. Something to that effect. And Carlton's not buying it, and he goes to walk out. And they're asking where he's going, and he says that he's going to look for Will. So Ashley is basically like, listen, we know what's going on with Jeffrey. So Vi calls, and her and Viv talk, and she tells, Viv tells Vi so hard, that he left that Lou left and that it didn't go so well, and that Will ran out in tears and they're trying to find him now. She's like, what do you mean you're trying to find him now? She wanted them to stop him, but I don't really know that there's much that they could have done. So she says that she should have told him herself, you know, this whole thing was her choice and he should have heard it from her. And then she could have, you know, consoled him or did what she needed to do at the time. And perhaps that would have been better because maybe we wouldn't have ended up here. So Carlton, he goes to Lisa's house because where else he's going to go looking for Will. So she's like, you know, he's like, I need your help to find Will. He's gone missing. He left a few hours ago and no one knows where he is. And she's like, he stood me up after he told me he loved me. And she's like, and Carlton's like, listen, his dad showed up at the house today. And Lisa's like, oh my God, yes, Lisa, girl, I get it. Trust me, I get it. Because he could have been like, something came up. But teenagers. And that was something that was hugely emotional. Like, I can't front. So he's like, it was bad, Lisa. And my parents have been lying to him. So he cries and he's like, he never turned his back on me. He's like, and I needed that. And he's like, you know, I need him now. And child, Carlton crying and I'm crying. And Lisa probably was crying too because she gave him a hug. And it was just, the actor, is it Ali? Oh my God. This scene, even when I rewatched it, I was like, I'm going to cry for real because it might be an ugly cry. So we see Will sitting in the same place we saw him in either the first or second episode as he's staring out at the city, and Jazz comes up. He's like, the whole family's worried about you, even Carlton. He's like, what are you doing up here? And Will's like, they lied. He spent his whole life wondering why he didn't have a dad because they lied. And Jazz goes to say that they were looking out for you, and Will calls BS. Like, his dad wasn't looking out for him when he wasn't, you know, reaching out for his own reasons. His mom wasn't, you know, looking out for him when she had her own reasons. And I get it, because to a kid that does look selfish and nobody understands the sacrifices that us parents make. But I mean, we as parents will have to sometimes do better ourselves. In therapy, me and mine, we're going to go to therapy. I promise. So Will's like, it's like nobody wants me. I said, Dad, I just finished crying over Carlton. Now you're going to make me cry again. So he's like, there's a house full of people in Bel-Air that would love to have you around. And he's like, all you got to do is get in your car and go back. And he's like, no, it's done. It's over. You said the city would try to make me forget who I am and where I came from. You were right. Jazz is like, remembering where you came from doesn't mean you can't change your life for the better. Amen. Jazz, tell him you better go off, because we get so stuck on something only having one meaning. No, you don't want to change. You always want to know where your roots is. You always want to know where you came from to keep you humble. But that don't mean you don't want to get better. Anyway, so he says the key to happiness is staying true to who you are, no matter where you are. It won't be easy, but it is possible. This whole moment is all you, Will. You have all the possibilities and the choices in front of you. Where do you want to go? And that's the last words we hear from Jazz as the episode ends. We don't see Will say anything. We don't have any idea what he's going to do. Whole time as we're going out, Dreams and Nightmares is again playing in the background. And that finale was a lot. But then again, during the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when Lou came around, that shit was a lot too. And Jabari is killing, Jabari and I think his name is Ali, both killing it with the acting. Killing it. Your girl is so looking forward to season 2. Although I don't want Will to go and backtrack and be what he was trying to prove a point. Because when I look at that trailer, baby, I said, Will, come on. Let your girl know what you are looking forward to in season 2. Please leave your thoughts and your theories and your comments and all of that good stuff below. And join me back here for season 2.